Revenge films.
My parents never paid attention to me. All they cared about was my little brother. They basically neglected me. Why? Because my little brother was a genius. He was super smart. At age 3, he could do basic math. When we were out walking in the city, my brother started saying some numbers out loud. At first, Mom had no idea what he was talking about. But then she found out that he was adding numbers he saw on the license plates. After that, my parents focused all their energy on him.
We gotta do everything we can for him. He's a genius. But we're not that wealthy, so we won't be able to spend a lot of money on the older one. Oh well.
She said that they didn't have money to waste on me, but they always ate out and went on vacations. What about that money? But they never took me. I had to stay home all the time. Some of our relatives told them to treat me better, but she never listened.
You're just jealous because my son is a genius. Don't tell me how to raise my kids.
What does that mean? I started hanging out with the bad crowd when I became a teenager. My parents disowned me. After that, one of my relatives adopted me. Until then, I was really bad with people. And I was pretty dumb too. I always got the worst grades in class. I didn't have any friends and all the teachers thought I had some mental problems. But after my relatives adopted me, I changed. I studied hard, caught up with my schoolwork, got into college. After the second try, got a job and got married. Life was good. Thing is, I was never bad with people. I just had trouble trusting others thanks to my neglectful parents. And I was never that bad with school either. When I was in elementary, I got a 90-something on a test. Missed a question or two, don't really remember. My mom yelled at me for it.
You're so dumb. How could you get this wrong?
No matter how hard I tried, they yelled at me even if I didn't get a perfect score. Soon I started to think that I was really dumb like they say. So I stopped trying. What's the point, right? I was dumb, so there was no point, I said to myself. I gave up on school completely by the time I was in 2nd grade. But my relatives were super nice to me. I learned that I could trust people. So I got my act together and started hitting the books. I got good grades and I even made some friends. They really helped me get my life back on track. My little brother graduated from the best college in the country and got a job at a big firm. I never talked to my parents after I left them, but they were always bragging about my brother to everyone, so I heard the rumors. But then he hit a wall. He was brilliant, but he couldn't fit in at work. And others got promoted before him. Moving up the ladder isn't just about being smart. You gotta read people and make compromises to do that. And he couldn't do that. But still, the pay was so good, my parents still bragged about him. Then, 3 years later, my parents got in a car accident and they were severely injured. They needed help from others to do daily chores now, but they had spent most of their money on my little brother, so they couldn't hire people to help them. They were actually up to their necks in debt, and my brother did nothing for them. So Dad called him and asked,
"Hey, could you come over on the weekends or something and help us out with things around the house?"
To which he said, "What? No way. I got stuff to do. Figure it out yourself." He didn't give a crap about them. But he still had no idea why they were so upset.
You know how much money we spent on you all these years? How can you say that to us? You're just gonna leave us to die here? Is that it?
You said you'd remove anything that got in my way when I was a kid. That's why you kicked out my brother, right?
Yeah, it was all for you, dear.
Okay then, well, now you two are in my way. Make yourself useful and get out of my life. And I'm not made out of money, you know. Figure it out on your own. Around the same time, my stepdad got sick and he needed someone to look after him. His wife was old too, so they hired helpers to help them out. I also did what I could to help out. But then one day, my real parents came barging into our home.
We're your real parents. Come back and take care of us.
My dad said to me. I replied, they're the ones that raised me, not you two. Get out. Ask your other son. Then I kicked them out of the house. A relative of ours passed by their house a few months later. They said that the smell was atrocious. The house was like a garbage dump. But they left without helping them. That's pretty cold, I thought. But my foster parents told me that the other relatives hated my real parents too. All they ever did was brag about their son, so they would say things like,
Oh, too bad your child isn't a genius like ours. Hey, no worries. I'm sure he'll be able to get a job, though. Probably not a good one, but can't be picky, right?
Soon they stopped inviting them to get-togethers. Everyone hated them. But after the accident, they started calling everyone, trying to leech off of them. But then they stopped calling, so they thought something had happened. That's why they went over to the house to check on them.
Come on, help us!
Yeah, we're family.
Nobody was worried about them. Frankly, nobody cared. 3 years went by. Who knows what they're up to now? I don't even know if they're alive. Whatever. I could care less. Good riddance.
I'm Bob. I'm an average office worker. I used to commute to work 5 days a week, but recently, my company started letting me work from home. I was still in my 20s, and I was good with computers, so it didn't take long for me to adapt. But working from home wasn't for everyone. Some of my colleagues who weren't good with computers were having a hard time adapting. Some of them couldn't even figure out how to use the chat application on the computer. It was mostly the older employees. But since this was the new company policy, they had no choice but to learn. It took a few months for everyone to get used to it, but things were finally starting to settle down. Personally, I loved working from home. I no longer had to spend hours commuting. My productivity increased, and I started coming up with better ideas. And I no longer had to deal with annoying bosses. Working from home was awesome. I never thought my company would let us work from home like this, but I'm glad they did. It just made everything so much better. But then, a few months later, the older employees started complaining about business manners. Before working from home became the norm, young employees were expected to show up to meetings earlier than the older employees. And it was considered rude to drink water during meetings. Personally, I thought these rules were stupid because they had nothing to do with productivity. And working from home freed us younger employees from these dumb rules. So I was really happy. But as the older employees started getting used to working from home, they started making new rules. And my manager was one of them. For instance, he started saying everyone should wear a suit even when working from home. It was so pointless. Nobody said anything, but everyone was pretty upset about this. I mean, it's not like we were having online meetings in our pajamas before. It was so stupid. But when he submitted this idea to HR, it got rejected because they didn't have the budget to buy a suit for every employee. It was such a relief. But then he just kept coming up with new ideas like, no emojis allowed. Then he started complaining about the security levels of the network system. He told the company engineers to build a new system with better security. But since it was a third-party system to begin with, there wasn't much they could do. I guess he just wanted something to complain about. Soon, us middle management types stopped taking him seriously. But the new employees couldn't just ignore him. I kind of felt bad. The manager came up with new rules all the time, and it was almost impossible to keep up. He was always yelling at the younger employees for breaking the rules. It was getting out of control. We felt like we had to do something because a lot of the new employees were quitting because of this. Something had to be done. Then one day, they started having morning meetings every day at 10. Work started at 9, so I logged in around 9:30. There were a few people there already, including the manager. I said hello, but the manager started yelling at me.
What's wrong with you? You're late!
Huh? I thought the meeting was at 10. I checked my watch. It was 9:30. I looked at the chat log. Someone had posted a screenshot of the calendar app. It said that the morning meeting started at 10. I just thought I'd log in a bit early. I wasn't expected to be yelled at, and most people weren't even here yet. Then, as the others started to join the chat room,
You're late! You should be logged in before me! I'm the manager here!
everyone looked confused. Some of them started apologizing to him. Then, 5 minutes before the meeting, the last participant joined the conference. Needless to say, the manager yelled at him too.
You're late! Everyone's been waiting for you! Apologize!
He was our section chief. He was pretty old too. He said to the manager,
What do you mean? The meeting starts at 10, right? It's 9:55. I don't see what the problem is.
Shut up! Everyone else is already here! You were late! Apologize!
We just kept quiet. The manager kept yelling at him. He was wasting everyone's time. We were getting pretty frustrated. Finally, the section chief realized that this was a waste of time.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay? Let's begin. Everyone's waiting for us.
But the manager kept going.
That's no way to apologize! You didn't mean that!
I was getting pretty annoyed, so I said to him, Sir, I've been recording all of this. Let's send the video to HR and let them figure out who's at fault here. Can we start the meeting already? Please? I wasn't bluffing or anything. It was all being recorded. The manager replied,
Huh? Oh, that won't be necessary. I'm sure HR is busy, so don't bother them!
No, I think they'll want to see this.
What? Stop that! This is a direct order!
But I ignored him and sent the video to HR. A few minutes later, someone from HR came to the manager's desk to have a little talk with him. And it was being broadcast live.
Stop making your own rules. This isn't your company.
He didn't know what to say to him.
No, I was just trying to make things better.
Better? You're making things worse. All those new employees that quit, it was all your fault. Now it makes sense.
What? No!
I've heard enough. You're getting a demotion.
Wait! Wait!
He chased after the manager from HR. A few days later, he got a demotion. He was no longer the manager. He looked like an empty shell of a man. Then, HR sent out a warning to all employees to make sure something like this didn't happen again. Peace at last. Glad everything worked out.
This all happened about 40 years ago. I was 5 at the time. My parents neglected me as a child. They were both addicted to gambling. My sister, who was still a baby at the time, and I always stayed home or in the car while they played pachinko. It didn't hit us or anything, but they just didn't care about us. Mom never cooked for me. I always ate bread and drank tap water. My sister was still a baby, so my mom gave her milk. But when she wasn't around, I had to make formula and feed it to her. One day they were on their way to the pachinko parlor as usual. They gave me some bread and told me to wait on the bench outside. My sister was with Mom. Then I saw this man. I've seen him a couple times before. He was always shopping at the supermarket next to the pachinko parlor. He was really kind to me.
You hungry? You thirsty?
He'd always bring me food and drink, so it was nice. That day he gave me a bottle of tea. Then my stomach rumbled.
You hungry? Did your parents feed you?
No, didn't have breakfast today. He looked upset. Then he said to me,
Want to come over to my house?
Mom always told me to stay away from strangers, but
I'll make you some omelets.
I guess I can go and still be back by the time they get out, I thought. So I decided to go with him. There was a woman at his house. She looked really nice.
Welcome to our home, dear.
She said to me. She made me an omelet. It was so good. I think this was the first time I had a home-cooked meal. They were crying for some reason. Then they asked me,
Do you want to come live with us?
and be our son?
We may not be rich, but we can play at the park and go to theme parks and have birthday parties.
Just like a regular family. I had no idea what he was talking about, though. I've never done those things in my life, so I thought families like that only existed in TVs and movies. I had no idea what to say. All I could say was, "Can I have some more omelets tomorrow?" It was a pretty stupid thing to say, I guess, but at the time, that's all I could think about. It was just so delicious. Then the lady said,
Of course, dear. You can come here every day if you want to.
I looked at their faces and said, "Okay, I guess I'll be your son." I don't really remember what happened after that, but I changed my name and moved in with them. Before I knew it, they were my new parents. It was hard to get used to my new name at first. I kind of felt guilty for leaving my sister behind too. I had to be really careful. I practiced writing my new name over and over again. My new parents were so kind to me. They put me through school. Mom cooked me 3 meals a day, every day. When Dad came home, I took baths with him. On weekdays, we went out to the park for a picnic. When I did something bad, they yelled at me. By the time I was in 6th grade, I had forgotten almost everything about my real parents. They were my parents now. When we moved, due to my father's work, I found a picture of them and a young boy I had never seen before. "Who's that?" I wanted to ask, but I had a feeling that I shouldn't. So I put the picture back and kept quiet. Anyways, I thought the good times would never end. But one day, I woke up in the morning. Nobody was home. There was breakfast on the table. There was an envelope next to it. It was a letter that said, "Hope everything works out for you." There was some money inside the envelope too. Then the police arrived and took me to the station. Then my real parents showed up with my sister. My sister and I got taken to a different room though. I had no idea what was going on. Then,
They confessed. We're questioning them right now.
are they going to jail?
I don't know, dear.
Liar! They're going to jail, aren't they? Stop! Stop! Don't do that to them! I started crying, telling the officer that my parents were innocent. My sister had no idea what was going on. She was eating the snacks they put on the table. Not sure what happened after that, but a few hours later, I was on my way home with my real parents.
Those stupid assholes. This is all their fault.
Said my mom. Who was she talking about? Turns out my foster parents turned themselves in. I think they were charged with kidnapping or something. And they also told the police about my abusive parents. That's why they were at the station.
Please, just take good care of him, okay? That's all we want.
The police had a long talk with my real parents after that. The thing is, they reported me missing years ago. But they didn't really care to look for me. All they cared about was gambling. My sister was 4 now, but she was barely eating. The police thought she was 2 years old or something. After that, people from Child Services came to our home twice a month. But nothing really changed. Since they didn't hit us or anything, they couldn't take us away from them. After graduating from middle school, I left home and took my sister with me. I got a job at a small factory. My parents were happy that they no longer had to take care of us. At age 20, I met someone at work and got married. My sister was 16 now, she was in high school. A few years later, we had kids of our own. It's been years since Mom and Dad got arrested, but they were still in prison. Turns out kidnapping wasn't the only crime they were charged with. They had a son, but when he was 3, he died from an accident at home. They couldn't live with the fact that they had lost their only son. And for some reason, they didn't tell anyone and hid his corpse inside the house. Then they found me. I was given their late son's identity. Some might call them crazy, and maybe they were. But can you blame them? And personally, they were much better than my real parents who only cared about gambling. Still, what they did was against the law. But what if I had said no to him that day when he offered to take me home? I don't think my life would have been the same if I had stayed with my real parents. And what if they didn't turn themselves in? My sister could have died. Who knows? Regardless of what they did, I still love them, and I'll be forever grateful for them. Once they get out of prison, I'm going to ask them to come live with us so we can all be a family again.
Do you all know the famous Japanese movie about a man falsely accused of rape that was made in 2007? The man was innocent but was sentenced to 6 years in prison. It shook the men of the world because of how absurd and real the movie was. I happen to be one of those people. And 5 years ago, I was 29. I was riding the train to work as usual. I live in the suburbs, so every day, the commuter train would always be packed at this time. That day as well, I was on my phone listening to music, checking my phone on the train. A few minutes later, at a big station, a lot of people went in and out of the train. I'm gonna get crushed! While being crushed, I tried my best to hold onto the handle with my right hand. At the next station, a large portion of the people got out, so it was a little better. Then...
Hey! You touched me, didn't you?
I looked over and a woman was glaring at me. The woman that yelled at me was a woman with fox-like eyes, with a lot of makeup, and was very small. She was wearing something very tight that outlined her body shape. What? Me?
Yes, you! You touched me! Help!
She began to yell, and other people began to stare in our direction. No, I didn't!
Yes, I know you did, you creep!
My left hand was on the phone, and my right hand was on the handle! There's no way I can touch you with my right hand!
I saw it! You were looking at pictures of women in bikinis. You got aroused and touched me, right?
No, I wasn't! I was looking at a CD cover of a group I like. There were women in bikinis on my phone, but that was just the CD cover of a group that I'm listening to a lot. Nothing weird. She just saw the bikinis and thought I was a creep.
You liar! You creep!
Her high-pitched voice echoed in the quiet train, and I could feel more people staring at me. She began to talk to the other people around her.
Hey, you saw him touch me, right?
I don't know.
How about you? You were standing right behind us.
No, I didn't see anything.
Men always cover for other men, huh? You know, if I sue you, you can be arrested and fired from your job.
Well, I didn't do anything, so I wouldn't get arrested or get fired.
Let me tell you something. Usually the women win in these circumstances. I've had enough. If you're willing to pay, I won't sue you. If you don't want to get arrested or fired, pay me $5,000.
She said as she smirked in victory. $5,000? Why do I need to pay you if I'm innocent?
Hey, you'll lose all your trust in your family, you know. If you pay up, I won't call the police. You really don't get it, huh?
I see. I understand. Then I'll sue you for this as a false accusation of rape, okay?
What? What's with that attitude? Get off on the next station, okay? I'll call the police, and your life will be over. Got it?
Sure, let's go. If we do a DNA test and fabric appraisal, we'll know that I'm 100% innocent, and your life will be over.
What? What are you talking about? Just pay up, okay? And I'll let you get away with it.
The train was still very quiet, and I knew that they were all listening in on the conversation. I don't think you understand, so let me explain this to you. With modern technology, they're able to check the DNA particles that are attached to cloth fibers, so they can figure out if a creep has touched or groped a certain part of the fabric, or if nobody has touched the fabric at all. Therefore, they can use the DNA from my hand to check if it's on your clothes. When I started to use big words, her face began to cloud, so I threw my hands in the air and began to yell as well. All right, I won't touch anything from here to the next station. So let's get off and get ourselves tested, okay?
Wait.
Everyone here will testify for us. I won't touch anything from here on. So let's hurry to the police and get this settled, okay?
What are you?
Me? I'm a lawyer, I said as I showed her the lawyer badge on the collar of my jacket.
A lawyer?
I heard everybody gasp in awe together.
Are you serious?
There's an increase in cases where women like you try to falsely accuse men and take money from them. So I have experience in dealing with these cases. I didn't think I would be the one to get attacked, though. Alright, now you can't run away. We're getting off at the next station, right? You'll be arrested for settlement fraud. You understand that's pretty big, even if you didn't act on it.
What? Why?
I was very young at the time, and because I had my hair dyed, I probably didn't look like a strict lawyer. Plus, I think she saw me looking at women in bikinis and thought I would be a great target. She tried running to the door, but since there were a lot of people, she couldn't. I felt that the people on the train were all helping me catch her. There's no use in running. There are a lot of cameras on the train station.
You tricked me, didn't you? You're terrible.
She screamed. But what did I do to her? With good timing, we arrived at the next station and brought her to the police. When I was getting off, I heard from the other people on the train. Well done. You'll be a great lawyer. There was a person that asked me for my contact information just in case, so I told him, please, contact me quickly when something like this happens to you. Speed is everything. As I told him my information and got off the train, soon after, thanks to all the testing, my innocence was proven. Plus, we learned that this woman had done this fraud 3 times before, and was reported. She likely had been addicted to the sensation of this fraud and continued her ways. But it sucks she chose me as my next target. You get what you deserve, and she was sentenced to prison for all of her past actions as well, and her life was ruined. These cases of false accusations are increasing, and subsequently, the number of fraud reports is too. I want all the men to know the proper information for when this may happen to you. And please, be calm when it happens to you. I hope false accusations like in the movie continue to go down.
I have a little sister 6 years older than me. She's very hardworking and intelligent. Unlike me, who didn't do any schoolwork and hang out with my friends, she would finish homework and study for the next day. She had a very strong sense of justice, and she became the first girl to become the class president. She was so smart, she went to Harvard University after high school. As for me, well, I barely made it out of high school, and studying wasn't my thing. It was faster for me to count from last place. My sister was calm and collected, while I saw very athletic and the sports type because I played a lot. But my sister always treated me like her treasure. When I had difficulty moving up to high school, my sister taught me everything as my tutor. And so, I was able to go to high school. In high school, I entered the tennis club, even though my sister was very busy in college. She would come watch every game I was in. I couldn't compete with her in academics, but I wanted to be great at something like her. So I tried my best in tennis. Moreover, I didn't want to be a disappointment to my sister. Because of my training, I was slowly able to win in some competitions. When it came time for exams, my sister would help me study, even though she was busy. Because of her, I was able to barely pass exams. Everything seemed like it was going smoothly, but this didn't last very long. One day, while I was changing, I noticed that my shoelaces were cut right in the middle. I knew that it was done by someone on purpose using what looked like scissors. It wasn't just this one time either. It happened constantly. My racket would be ripped, the racket case would be filled with dirt, and I had my things stolen. One day, I figured out who the culprit was. It was the upperclassmen in my tennis club. That day when I went to rest in the lockers, I saw my upperclassmen A and B pouring milk into my tennis bag. What are you doing? I took my bag back quickly, but everything in the bag from my clothes to my textbooks were covered in milk. The reason they did that was because I got better scores than them. Did you learn your lesson? Just because you're slightly better doesn't mean you can have that attitude. As they said that, they beat me with my racket. It hurt very much, but I was more in shock. I went home and didn't tell anyone what happened. I couldn't say that I was being bullied in school because I was embarrassed. I went straight to my room without eating dinner, got into bed and cried silently. I noticed my sister come into my room. What happened at school? You're crying, right? She knew from the get-go. I don't want to talk about it. Then my sister ripped the blanket off of me and told me in anger. Just tell me. I've never seen my sister's face so serious and angry. I told everything that happened until now. And her face was very red from all the anger. That day, she was on my computer calling people all night long. The next day, I wore my athletic clothes and went to the principal's office with her. There, the headmaster, principal, coach, and teacher were there. My upperclassmen A and B were standing there as well. My sister showed everyone there my ankle. Do you see these bruises? She can't put that on herself, right? It's evidence they did this to you, right? Yes. This is clear evidence of assault. We did no such thing. Fine. If you keep lying, you'll make the punishment much worse. Oh well. How about this? She brought out my tennis bag with all my equipment in it. And everyone gasped at the smell. The shoelace and racket gut were all cut. The bag itself is covered in mud. And the clothes and textbooks that were inside the bag stench of milk. Do you think someone would do this to themselves? This is clearly damage of property.
Wait a minute. There may be some things that were done purposefully, but we cannot claim all of it is. The headmaster's right. I heard she's bad at academics. She may have done these on purpose to get away with the exams.
What? Is that really what a teacher would say? If you're gonna say that, please check the bag and rackets to see if you can find any fingerprints of the upperclassmen on there.
Well, if the equipment was in the locker room, anyone could have touched it. And it wouldn't be a surprise if their fingerprints were on it.
You're still in doubt, huh? Then, I'll show you one last evidence. As she said so, she pointed at the upperclassman's bag. That keychain right there. I had made that teddy bear as a birthday gift for my sister. As evidence, there is an amulet from Scat Temple in the bear. You can check inside the bear if you'd like. They stole that from you, right? Yes. The reason you're quiet is because what I said was true, right? I said, do you confess to your crimes? Yes, we did it! We're so sorry!
Not now. It's their last summer here. How about we finish it there?
Last summer? Who cares? Are you, a teacher, going to let crime go by without punishment? I'm going to file for a complaint. They're not going to be in another tournament.
They're still underage. We can't do anything that will impact their future.
Okay, if that is the stance that the school will take in regards to bullying, I'll have to sue the school. I recorded everything you said today. I have the confessions and your attitude in protecting the bullies all recorded. This will be very powerful in court. I know what you want. You don't want this to be made public, right? The adults in the room had nothing else to say. Then, upperclassman A started to cry. Why are you crying? The one who wants to cry is my sister, who you bullied. Are you sad because it all came back to you? Do you want to cry? Apologize to my sister. Swear you will never hurt anyone else. I'm sorry. I won't do this again. My request is for them to be kicked out of the club and to secure my sister's school life. And to investigate around the school. I'm sure they've done things much worse to other kids. You understand?
Yes, we promise.
To be honest, my sister was quite scary here. Everyone thought that she would seriously bring this to court, and that she would leak this to the press. And just as she suspected, the two were bullying other kids as well. And this became a much bigger problem because of what they were doing. Rumors spread about what happened, and the two were expelled from school. My sister then became a lawyer. As for me, I became the regional champion, with my sister cheering me in the crowd with tears of joy. She may have a bit of a sister complex, but she is always willing to put in the effort to solve problems, and is able to help anyone around her. That's why she's the best. I'm 43 and single. I often get asked, why don't you get married? But there is a reason why I can't get married. When I was 23, after graduating college, I entered an advertising agency. I was sent to the sales department. Back then, I was quite small and chubby, so I was honestly not looking forward to working in sales. Unsurprisingly, half a year into the position, Because I didn't have confidence, I messed up a lot. I got yelled a lot by my higher-up, and it did get me down, but I didn't want to quit this job. My boss, named Mr. James, the sales manager, was 30 and married. He would come to me when I was getting yelled at and help me out of tough situations constantly. He was trusted by his coworkers, was a devoted husband, and in just 3 years of joining the company, he had moved up the ladder to manager position. So I didn't think he was a bad person at all. To teach me about work, we would often go around sales together. On our third time,
I forgot something in my house. Would you mind if we stopped by for a bit?
sure. When we got to his house, I was waiting for him outside.
It's pretty hot outside. Come in for a cold drink.
If you insist. Like I said, I had fully trusted this person until then.
I'll go get the stuff.
I'll be waiting here. As I waited for him and drank the tea, Mr. James went upstairs. Picture of his wife and child. He must really love his family. As I thought so, I heard Mr. James come downstairs. Mr. James, you have such a wonderful family. I'm so jealous. As I said that, I saw Mr. James standing there holding duct tape. Huh? As I stood there in shock, something hit me in the head, and I fell to the ground dizzy. As I lay there, tape was put on my mouth, and I couldn't fend for myself. And he did what he wanted, onto me, while I was powerless. The day he dropped me off near my apartment in his car, I was in shock, and I got back to my room and stood there for a few minutes. What do I do? As I contemplated, I dropped to the ground and cried. After that, I skipped work for 2 days.
Hey, are you alright? You're absent without calling in. Did something happen?
When I picked up the phone from the office, it was Mr. James. I cut the phone without saying anything. Then, an emotion burst inside of me. I can't stand a person doing something like that to me. Is living a normal life. I'll get my revenge. It was vengeance. On the same day, I went to the hospital to get everything checked up and get evidence. I also picked up the underwear and stockings I wore that day to save. I bought a recorder for what's to come, and saved every email and message I received from Mr. James after the incident. The next day, I went to the office without hesitation. Hey, what happened to those scars? It's nothing.
You tripped pretty badly when we were on sales, huh? Are you alright?
Yes, I see. You're so clumsy.
Yeah, I can't ignore her, you know.
I was about to burst in anger looking at Mr. James talking to me normally. He continued to bombard me after.
Did you go to the hospital?
No.
Alright, I'll go and buy you some cream.
He thinks that I won't retaliate and is relieved. You just wait. As I thought, pressing the save button. Then, I went along with my usual work. I was waiting to get the evidence I needed. And 1 month later, I called for Mr. James to come to a nearby cafe. Mr. James, this is the report for abuse I'm going to submit. Here's the evidence I got from the hospital.
You lied about going to the hospital? But a bad rumor about you is just going to go around, you know? Because you came into my house and asked for permission, right? It was consensual.
Consensual? Who would think that was consensual?
This is just evidence you went down, right? Do you have any other evidence? Why aren't you talking? I'm asking if you have evidence I raped you. Huh? I'm saying this so you don't get any more hate. See? You're quiet. You don't have any more evidence, huh? I'll forgive you for today that...
I do.
Huh?
I have evidence. It's in my belly.
What? Wait, you...
Yes. I have his baby in my stomach. The reason I waited for a month was to get the evidence I was pregnant. There was nothing wrong with the baby. And I didn't want to take advantage of it like this, but I also thought it'll be the best evidence I have. Whatever. With this evidence and the report for abuse, I have evidence for your affair. And a bruise from a fall doesn't match a bruise from a person. This is evidence for that. Plus, I have the underwear that you broke with your prints on them. See? I do have evidence.
Wait, remember what happened? You enjoyed it too, right? It looked like you did, so it was consensual. So please, about the report.
I will not forgive you. He told me he'd pay, but I ignored him and went to the police with my lawyer to report the abuse. But things were tough afterwards too. When we met to discuss with everyone, I believe he did nothing wrong. I trust this man as my husband and a father. He says he didn't do it. Mrs. James said, crying. And for some reason, Mr. James cried beside her.
Yeah, I didn't do it. She made up everything.
The lawyer said that Mr. James was completely innocent, and that I was lying and made up every part of that story. So, our team put out our next big evidence. We put a voice recorder out and played play, and everyone was in shock.
Please, listen to this. Plus, here's the evidence for the abuse. Mr. James' fingerprints were found on her underwear, and there's a baby in her womb that is likely his.
No way! It can't be! You told me it was all her fault!
Mr. James, please consent to take a DNA test to check the father of the baby. If it's all a lie, then there isn't a problem, right?
Mr. James sat there trembling in silence, and his wife was in shock. Their lawyer knew that all hope was lost. Later, Mr. James was sentenced guilty for his actions. He was fired from his job, divorced his wife, and because his ex-wife and I both requested alimony, he had to sell his house and became dirt poor. At least he was able to stay in prison, which didn't set well with me. But after he was let out, there was nothing he could do from there, which was a relief. Later, I said goodbye to the child. It was horrifying to be abused by someone, but I still couldn't get over the feeling of letting go of an innocent child. But back then, that was the only thing that I could have done. Now, I moved somewhere far, far away, where nobody knows my past, and I live off the alimony and hope to one day be set free from what I had to do.
That day, I was on our yearly camping trip with my wife and my second grade son. We were able to secure a location in the shade. And since there weren't a lot of people present, we were able to keep a lot of distance from the other campers. After we set up our tent, my wife got the barbecue ready. So I played with our son in the river while we waited for the meat to get ready. But when the sun was about to go down, suddenly, vroom vroom, beep beep. With a very loud sound, we saw a big truck come into the parking lot, and out came 4 mean-looking thugs.
Damn, there aren't any open spaces.
It's because you woke up late, drunk!
There's a space over there! Lucky us!
Unlucky for us, the thugs were pointing at a very small space open right next to where our tent was. The space wasn't big, barely fit 1 tent.
It'll be bad if we don't have a tent in the dark. Let's just build it there.
And so, they put up a tent. There was barely any space, and the opposite side of the tent had their pegs sticking out. The other family was similar to us, 3 people. But right after they finished their barbecue, they just went back into their tent. Alright, let's build a fire!
Yeah, we just need to put in this gel, right? Who bought so many of these? Hey, don't use all of it, alright? I know.
I'll go buy more alcohol. We need more.
It was past 7 p.m. and it was getting dark. Everyone, including us, were going into our tents. But the thugs had a different idea. They started to drink and party. My wife and I tried our best to keep our child away from them. But because they were so loud, everyone peeked out of their tents with an irritated face to check.
How long are they going to be like that? This is a family-friendly camp space with kids.
I wish they'd be quiet by 9 or 10 p.m. I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to get my son involved in any way. So we sat quietly and played cards and board games with our son. But even after 9 p.m., they never quieted down. In fact, because they were getting drunk, they were getting louder. Soon after...
Oh wow, look!
This is what I call a campfire! I heard them shout. It was already past 10 p.m.
I can't sleep because they're too loud.
Yeah, I know.
I had enough. I'm going to talk to them.
Hey, don't!
No! Wait! Oh!
When my wife tried to open the tent, while I tried to stop her, tons of smoke came into our tent. What's happening? Let's get out of here! When we got outside, we felt a large gust of hot wind. Ah! What are you guys doing? The thugs were burning the grass on the ground. Hey! That's dangerous! What are you doing? What if everything else catches on fire?
Shut up! Fire doesn't spread like that!
Then some people came rushing towards us. It was the husband of the family on the opposite side and the admin of the campsite. Hey! What are you doing? That isn't allowed here! Put it out, now! It's just a campfire, come on!
Just listen to the admin and follow the rules, or get out of here! God, it's just a small fire!
Let's ignore them and make a bigger fire! Right then, the first thug threw something in the fire, and it suddenly grew bigger. Then it spread right to our tent. The fire also hit my son's arm, and he cried out,
Oh, it's hot!
The fire was still going, so I quickly put it out with my hands.
Oh, it hurts!
Quickly! Bring him to the hospital! I'll put out the flames!
I know where the hospital is. I'll help you bring him there.
The other wife put my wife and son in her car, and they drove to a nearby night hospital. I quickly ran to the river to get water. Because of the commotion, the other people came out of their tents, and everyone helped in extinguishing the fire. We succeeded, but we couldn't save our tent. And during the chaos... Hey! They're trying to escape! A man was shouting as he pointed in a direction. Looking over, I saw the thugs quietly packing their things and trying to leave the scene without doing anything. Are you guys trying to run away?
It wasn't on purpose, so we could leave, right?
My son was burnt, and you burnt our tent to a crisp! You can't just leave! It wasn't on purpose, it's because of the wind! We were just having fun, it wasn't our fault! Then the other husband came.
Then what's this? Fire gel, right? How many of these things did you guys use when making the fire?
I don't know, maybe 2?
Liar! There's at least 10 in this trash can!
Fire gel is very dangerous, and you shouldn't put more in when there's already fire. There are a lot of cases reported with the use of fire gel.
Fine, just need to pay for the tent, right?
That won't settle it, but we'll talk about it at the station. Looking around, there were already 2 police cars at the scene. They came without putting on their lights. Soon after, we could hear the sirens of more police cars and a fire truck coming this way.
I didn't tell you this, but take a look here.
He brought out a police badge from his pocket. He was actually a policeman.
I was worried about what you guys might do, so I called the police beforehand.
Huh? Everyone was in shock. Like they do in dramas, everyone saluted to each other, and the thugs were arrested. David, you're a goodness! They struggled as they got put in the cars. Afterwards, the police investigated the scene to get evidence and such, and the fire truck put out the remainder of the fire. Sorry for the inconvenience. I need to apologize for making you go through this even though I was there. No, thank you for calling for backup prior too.
No problem. Let me go and punish them.
He said as he went back into the police car to go to the station. I packed my things as well. Then I got into my car and drove to the hospital. I thanked the policeman's wife for her support. My son was fine, with a small burn. But we'd never had such a chaotic camping experience. The other campers helped improving the actions of the thugs. And since the thugs were caught using 10 fire gels, trying to escape the scene of the fire, and causing my son harm, they had to pay a hefty compensation and faced even more charges. Later, I received calls from the thugs' parents.
He was going to the company with our father's name, but this got cancelled. I'll make him pay you back with his life. I apologize for his actions.
And cried. As a father myself, I vowed to raise my son the right way. Because of this incident, we got close to the neighboring campers, and we go on annual camping trips together now. I lived away from my family for a while due to work. I finally came home last spring, but my wife has been acting weird. She worked part-time at a nearby hospital. She was rarely home. She said she had to work double shifts because there weren't enough people at work. She seemed really busy. She barely did anything around the house. And she went out almost every Sunday. And she never picked up her phone. Something was up, so I decided to set a trap. One morning, I told her I was coming home late, but I took paid leave and came home around noon. I searched the room and found countless lingerie I'd never seen before, and her credit card bills were through the roof. I even found a contact for some apartment I've never heard of before. None of this made sense. Then I called her workplace to see if her story checked out. They told me she took the afternoon off. So I went to the apartment and rang the doorbell, but nobody was home. I checked their parking space as well, but the car was gone. I was furious. I waited there for 2 hours. Then I thought, even if I catch them, what then? First I'd tear him apart and get a divorce, but then my kids would be really upset, and I didn't want that. So if I kept quiet about this, nobody gets hurt. All kinds of thoughts ran through my mind. Then a car pulled up. It was my wife, all right. She was sitting in the passenger seat with a big smile on her face. I was so shocked. It felt like someone hit me in the head with a hammer. But she didn't even notice me. She held his hand and walked back to the apartment. I went to a nearby convenience store and bought some food and drinks. I went back to the parking lot and waited. They came out around 9:30. As they got in the car, I threw the can at the windshield. Then she noticed me. She started screaming. Then the car drove off. They almost ran me over. I couldn't do anything. I just stood there, speechless. I got home around midnight, but my wife wasn't home. My parents were watching the kids. She didn't call or text me for 2 days. Then on the 3rd day, she finally came home. Her parents and the kids were with her. Her dad started off by saying, "I'm terribly sorry for what my daughter did, but can you forgive her? For the kids' sake?" She didn't say anything. She just stood there in silence. Why is her dad apologizing? I want to hear it from her. I told her to explain herself, and she finally started talking. She told me that she didn't take care of the kids when she was seeing him, and she was seeing him every week. She even went on vacation with him a couple of times. Her parents started crying. Then she told me that she used up most of our mutual savings. We had about $80,000 in there. We were saving up for a home. And now it was all gone. She spent it all on that guy. Birthday gifts, vacations. She even bought him that stupid car. I wasn't that wealthy, but I worked hard. I saved up all these years because I wanted to build a house for my family one day. When I was away on business, I didn't eat out as often so that I could save money. While my colleagues went out drinking, I stayed home. I was doing it all for my family, but she betrayed me and used it all on her boyfriend. I was losing my mind. I was furious. But her parents were there, and so were the kids. I took a deep breath to settle down. But there was more. Turns out our savings weren't enough since they rented an apartment in the city. My wife was now $30,000 in debt. I was speechless. All that hard work, it was all for nothing. What the hell is wrong with you? Why did you do this?
You were always working, and I got lonely. I just wanted to get away from it all, even the kids.
I didn't know what to say anymore. I can't believe I worked hard all these years for her. And how could she say that in front of her kids? I couldn't believe her. I couldn't let it go. I'm taking the kids. Get the hell out of here! She started crying and begging me for forgiveness.
I'll never see him again, and I'll get you all the money back, I promise.
Her parents got down on the floor as well. We promise we'll pay you back every dime!
Please, we're begging you.
I just laughed at their faces. She left our kids to be with this guy. I'm not gonna forgive you, ever! And you used up all of our savings just like that! You really expect me to trust you? And you're gonna pay me back either way because I'm suing you for damages! That's all. I've got nothing else to say to you. Get out here! They were speechless. They finally left. Now it was just me and my kids. What now? I had to keep working to provide for them, but they were still really young, so I needed someone to look after them. After much thought, I decided to call my mom for help. I told her everything. How my wife cheated on me and spent all our savings on this guy. I told her I was taking the kids, but I had to work, so I needed her help. She just listened silently as I poured out my heart. Then she said to me,
"Come home, dear. This is your home too."
I couldn't stop crying. And so the kids and I moved in with my parents so that I could keep working. I hired a lawyer for my divorce proceedings. Now that I was leaving her, her parents were refusing to pay. But they didn't really have a choice. I sued her for damages, child support, and the savings she used up. All in all, I sued her for more than $100,000. It was either that, or we went to court. They finally gave up and paid me in full. She came crying to me a couple of times, but I shut her out every time. Her parents sold the house, but it wasn't even enough to pay off the debt. They ended up begging their relatives for money. I heard they cut all ties with her after that. Needless to say, I sued her boyfriend as well. He was a doctor from her workplace. He was married too. He didn't want to go to trial, so he paid me in full. But I still told everyone at his workplace about what he did. I even told his wife myself. As a result, he got fired, and his wife left him. Good riddance. Today, the kids and I live happily with my parents. Since my ex barely took care of them, they didn't miss her at all. And my parents spoiled them. They seemed happy, which made me happy too. Being a single father won't be easy, but I'm gonna do everything I can for them. Time to move on with my life.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.